Tiān Mìng Xuán Niǎo is often translated to the mysterious lady of the nine heavens, or the dark maiden of the ninth heaven, mysterious maiden, and you've heard me refer to her as the lady of the ninth heaven. Lady of the ninth heaven singular makes sense because Tiān means the highest point of the heavens. Tiān translates to Empuria or Empyrean heaven.
But Lady of the Nine Heavens, plural, also makes sense because there's the mythology of 9 provinces of heaven. So it's equally possible that she's the Lady of the Nine Heavens, plural. For this video, and you'll see in my book, I Ching, the Oracle, departing from what I did in the Tao of Craft, I'll be referring to her as the Lady of the Nine Heavens. But again, equally plausible that it's Lady of the Ninth Heaven or Lady of Empuria. Empuria in the Western world meaning the highest echelon of heaven. In Tang Dynasty Taoist texts, that's circa 600 AD to 900 AD, the Lady of the Nine Heavens is referred to as a Nüshen. Nüshen often gets translated to goddess, but it can also mean fairy spirit, kind of like a kami in Shinto. Could even mean nymph. Translations are hard. The word Sheng can mean god or goddess, genderless unless you add a modifier, or it could mean an immortal or ascended master spirit or a nature spirit, similar to the, again, concept of kami in Shinto. Sheng even means a state of mind, consciousness. So without a whole lot of context, it's really hard to know exactly how to translate an instance of Sheng into English. One of the challenges presented when doing translations is trying to determine what a word might have meant during its time and place, and then what that equivalent might be in our current time and place, and in a totally different language and cultural context. I think if you're doing a translation that brings in some equivalent cultural understanding, then I like Archangel because that seems to effectively communicate to a Western audience what her role and the scope of her powers would be. And because she is often depicted as a divine messenger, but a powerful one who can bring down oppressors, restore justice, give you strength, and give you knowledge, I think Archangel makes sense. The Lady of the Nine Heavens is a disciple and messenger of Shèng Mǔ Yuán Jūn, who I and many others in the southern regions associate with the Queen Mother of the West, Wáng Mu, but let's talk about that. First, out of curiosity, I wondered how Shèng Mǔ Yuán Jūn has gotten translated into English in the past. You ready for it? The Virgin Mary. Yep, Shang Di, the Heavenly Father, documented on oracle bones since the times of the Shang Dynasty, 1600 BC, became the Christian god, and Shèng Mǔ Yuán Jūn is the Virgin Mary. So Shèng Mǔ Yuán Jūn essentially means primordial or supreme, holy, sacred Queen Mother. Historically, the Supreme Holy Queen Mother was the chief feminine sovereign figure of heaven, separate and distinct from Wáng Mu, the Queen Mother of the West. But over the millennia, among native practitioners, it became syncretized with Wáng Mu, Queen Mother of the West. Whether Shèng Mǔ Yuán Jūn and Wáng Mu are one and the same or are totally separate and distinct is going to depend on who you ask. There's also a sutra or sacred text that connects this Supreme Holy Queen Mother to another goddess, 月光皇后圣母, Sacred Queen Mother of Moonlight, a heavenly moon goddess of sorts. Now that is a long title in any language. It's called Supreme Heavenly Primordial Venerable Treasured Treatise of the Supreme Holy Queen Mother of Moonlight. Maybe Sacred Peacock? Not exactly. Maybe it's Sacred Peacock, Venerable Peacock, Holy Queen Mother, and then some reference to a peacock, and then Great Wisdom, and then Sutra. That final word, Jing, means sacred text or sutra, like I Ching, the sacred text of change. You know, kind of interesting, Hera in Greek mythology was also associated with the peacock, right? Hera, Queen Mother of the Gods. We don't really know how old the sutra or sacred text is, but it's part of the established Orthodox Taoist canons or Taozang. So I'd say 400 to 500 AD-ish at the latest. This supreme primordial Holy Queen Mother Peacock goddess is known as the Mother of God because she gave birth to the Jade Emperor, who rules heaven. All right, I'm going to go off on a tangent about the Supreme Holy Queen Mother, Mother of Gods, because its context I think is pretty important to know for understanding the Lady of the Nine Heavens. So the Queen Mother Sutra, that sutra I just referenced, has some really incredible lines. She's the reborn, ever-changing, ever-evolving, and the eternal Supreme One, ancestor of all. Oh, I want to make clear for those who cannot read Chinese, I'm adding the pronoun she. The original text itself is gender neutral. She is the sound of all, and she is the sound of one. She is the sound of the multitudes, and she is the harmony of that sound of multitudes. We can also say voice. So she is the voice of all. She is the voice of one. She is the voice of the multitudes and the harmony or peaceful union of that voice of multitudes. She possesses deep and profound compassion for us humans. Drumming and invocations bring the good auspices. Bell chimes and song reveal the truth of the mysteries.
The sutra then goes on to talk about the Jade Maidens, Yunü, spirit gatekeepers at the liminal points of the cosmos. 6 Jade Maidens accompany or tend to the Lady of the Nine Heavens, and each of these 6 Jade Maidens are also master teachers of martial and occult arts. They're invoked as patron protectors over homes, shrines, or altars, and can also serve as psychopomps or guides through the underworld. Their roles in the celestial realm range from handmaidens to warriors. The 6 Jade Maidens who attend to the Lady of the Nine Heavens are depicted as warrior spirits, while those who attend to the Queen Mother of the West are depicted as handmaidens.
The sutra, if you're interested in deep diving into it, is almost entirely focused on feminine presenting celestial spirits and their powers and goddess worship. All right, so back to the Queen Mother Wáng Mu and the Lady of the Nine Heavens. The mythology goes that when humanity is facing a civil crisis, the Queen Mother in heaven will send her protege, the Lady of the Nine Heavens, to the human world as her emissary. When the Yellow Emperor faced a great war against the invader Jiu, the Queen Mother sent Tiān Mìng Xuán Niǎo to teach the art of war and the art of magic to the Yellow Emperor so that he could defeat Jiu. She appeared to the Yellow Emperor upon a vermilion or red phoenix emerging from a great dark mist of phosphorus, luminescent radiant clouds, wearing a garment of kingfisher feathers in 9 different colors. It's kind of interesting to me how the color palette for the kingfisher bird is kind of similar to that of the peacock. Anyway, at least that's one account of the myth from the 9th century Tang Dynasty Taoist master Du Guangting that was in records of the assembled transcendence of the fortified wall city. The 7 Signs of Yunji, Yunji Qiqian, a multi-volume Taoist grimoire from the Northern Song Dynasty 1017 to 1021 AD, notes that the Lady of the Nine Heavens teaches the Yellow Emperor to craft a powerful protection Fu talisman, crafted per a methodology called the Yin-Yang Shu, Yin and Yang technique. Method of the Yin and Yang? The occult arts, yes. Yin-Yang as a phrase also translates to the occult arts or occult philosophy. So if you say yin, you know what that is. Yang, you know what that is. Yin-Yang. So you can say yin and yang. However, in context, when you say yin and yang, yin-yang, it also means occult philosophy. Correction, practice is a much better translation. Yin-Yang Shu translates to occult practice or methods of occult practice. So yes, the Lady of the Nine Heavens teaches the occult arts to the Yellow Emperor. She also gave the Yellow Emperor a text called the Huáng Yin Fu Jing, Yellow Emperor's Classics of the Hidden Talisman. There was a second instance in Chinese history where history and mythology mix. When Goujian, king of Yue, circa 400 BC, was at war with the kingdom of Wu. The kingdom of Yue are the ancestors of pre-Han Taiwan. The kingdom of Wu is best known for being the birthplace of Sun Tzu, the art of war guy. Great injustices and suffering were inflicted upon Goujian and his wife, so the Queen Mother sends Tiān Mìng to be reincarnated as a swordswoman named Yue to teach martial arts and political strategy to Goujian's military forces. The part of the lore that always sticks to me is when King Goujian questions Yue because he finds it too incredulous that this woman living alone in the forest could just randomly be this great at martial arts and sword fighting. So he asks her, "Who trained you? Who is your master?" Yue, an incarnation of Tiān Mìng, replies, "I trained myself here in the forest. I am of no lineage and I have no earthly master to name of." To me, the lesson I try to learn here is that my so-called occult credentials, and really applying to mundane life as well, my resume, which university I went to, my degrees, academic or mystical, or lineage, is not what qualifies me to be a master of an art. It's just how good or not good I am at the craft. That's it. Do I actually wield the power or do I not? Do the gods hear my prayers or do they ignore me? Let the quality of your work speak for itself. Let your abilities speak for itself. My takeaway there from Tiān Mìng is just to be results oriented. Don't let superficialities be your stumbling block. Back to the legend of Goujian. After he won the war, he went to look for Yue. His last glimpse of her was Yue turning into 6 black mysterious stones and her spirit ascending back to heavens as Tiān Mìng. Quick sidebar. Oh my gosh, there are going to be so many tangent sidebars in this video. But let's talk a bit about this, about the Eastern religious concept of divine consciousness and reincarnation. For example, in Buddhism, you'll often hear about Guāng Yin, the Bodhisattva of mercy and compassion, as, to put it crudely, a standalone divine being. But you'll also hear legends and myths of humans who are the reincarnation of Guāng Yin. But what we really mean isn't that Guāng Yin is now wholly reincarnated into human. What we mean is a part of Guāng Yin divine consciousness has entered and integrated with a human consciousness housed within a human body. Conceptualize a goddess X as a flame. Goddess X, Xuan Yu, Tiān Mìng, that wasn't even intentional. Conceptualize goddess X as a candle flame. You can light a separate and distinct candle with the goddess X flame, and a totally new flame is produced, which is not the same as the goddess X flame, but also is. So a fragment that is equal to the whole, but is not the whole of divine consciousness, can reincarnate into or be embodied by a human being. That's how you would say that the Lady of the Nine Heavens can both appear as herself in her divine form, but also be reincarnated into or be embodied by Yue in the story of Goujian. The Lady of the Nine Heavens is a goddess of the esoteric and occult arts, martial arts, and ceremonial magic. And again, just to clarify, my use of the term goddess is just my loose translation of the term 女神. She is often invoked for dispelling evil, subduing violence, thwarting harm, protection magic, and most important of all, enacting justice. She rectifies. Yin-yang shu, this concept of yin and yang balance, which also means the occult arts, is her purpose. So if one side of a polarity is at an extreme, tantamount to oppressing the other side, she'll come to restore balance, bring justice. Xuan is often depicted with a sword to symbolize martial arts and a gourd to symbolize healing magic. The sword also symbolizes justice, or a just war. The Han and Song dynasty texts describe her as a celestial with the head of a woman and the body of a bird with the bright, luminescent blue-green plumage of a kingfisher bird. In terms of how she is depicted in human form, you will see both Tiān Mìng depicted as an elderly, matronly, wise woman, and also depicted as a young, sprightly, and beautiful maiden. In antiquity, she was beloved by soldiers, warriors, and martial artists, so she's definitely a war goddess. But today, if you go to East Asia and Southeast Asia, she has a lot of female devotees who seek her out when they are facing a grave injustice. And we need the power of Tiān Mìng to help us subdue our oppressor or bring them to justice. There's also the syncretizing or conflation of the Lady of the Nine Heavens and Nuwa. essentially a primordial mother of humanity. Nuwa is the sister wife of Fuxi. Fuxi is the one who drew from heaven and earth, yin and yang, to reveal the 8 trigrams or Bagua. The majority view among cultural historians as a collective today is that Xuan and Nuwa are totally separate and distinct divine figures and aren't even from the same period of mythology. But that doesn't change the fact that you can visit temples across East Asia and Southeast Asia where Xuan and Nuwa are venerated as one and the same goddess. So there is this divide between what scholars say and what you actually see happening with your own 2 eyes, and what's being practiced among the folk, Operating on the religious premise that there is a connection between Nuwa and the Lady of the 9 Heavens, then that would mean the Lady of the 9 Heavens is part of the origins story of the I Ching. And the synthesis of ancient knowledge that the Book of Changes represents is connected to Xuan somehow. Xuan, the Lady of the 9 Heavens, is also considered the ancestor of the Shang people. In fact, she is often linked to the matriarchal societies of the Shang. This is 1600 BC to 1046 BC. More specifically, there's a clan origins or creation story involving a mythical blackbird or mysterious bird, Xuan Niǎo. An infertile concubine of the emperor swallows an egg left behind by the mythical bird, Xuan Niǎo, and then gives birth to the first ancestor of the Shang clan of kings. This is as recorded by Sima Qian in the records of the Grand Historian. To be more specific, this mythic blackbird, Xuan Niǎo, is the Tiān Mìng Xuán Niǎo, or mysterious heavenly bird of destiny. Over time, the mysterious heavenly bird of destiny and the mysterious Lady of the 9 Heavens merge, and thus the lady is also associated with the bird. If you want to learn more about the Lady of the 9 Heavens, along with rituals and historically documented invocations associated with Tian Xuan, then you're really going to like my book, I Ching the Oracle. Which brings us to why in the title I'm juxtaposing the Lady of the 9 Heavens and the I Ching. I had this really clear purpose for writing a book on the I Ching, and that was to introduce you to the Lady of the 9 Heavens. I wanted this book to be, don't laugh at me, okay? To be a way for me to, like I said, make the introduction. So it's me saying to you, hello, reader, meet the Lady of the 9 Heavens. Lady of the 9 Heavens, meet this reader, you. All right, my work here is done. Peace out. I really curated as thoughtfully as I could the sources for you to access to better know the mythology and lore of Xuan and all things Xuan. Remember that word, Xuan. Look for it throughout the book, because I never talk about it without carefully thought through intention and making sure I'm giving you all the breadcrumbs you need. Finally, I did want to talk about what I haven't talked about intentionally when it comes to Tian Xuan. I really hesitate to ever say someone's perspective or perception of deity is wrong, so I will lead with that. Then I'll remind you of the parable of the elephant and the blind men, where several blind men were interacting with different parts of an elephant, and each saying the elephant is this way, and no, you're wrong, the elephant is that way, based on the isolated part of the animal they were touching, missing the bigger picture of what an elephant is. With those stipulations in place, there are a few obscure texts on Tian Xuan that, because they resonated strongly with men and men's desires, quickly became popular and dominating perspectives and perceptions of Xuan. And over time, that little part became mistaken for the whole. But I am not asking you to accept my perspective. Instead, I am asking you to be intuitive and to think critically for yourself. Think from the perspective of a nu. 女娲九天玄女女神 Jade Maidens 玉女 the primordial divine queen mother, Wáng Mu, empress mother. What sort of spiritual practices intuitively to you align with empowering veneration of such a facet of the divine feminine, a facet that is unequivocally about strength, power, occult power, justice, martial arts, and war? And what sorts of spiritual practices intuitively to you would seem violating to the divine feminine rather than venerating? And if you violate a goddess figure, as the corrupt wanton last emperor of Sheng did with Nüwa, what do you think the consequences might be? Oh, just the reciprocal defiling of your soul and karma, death by fire and decapitation, and the destruction of your empire. In case you're not familiar with the Dixing, last emperor of Shang reference, it's only the best legend ever. This is the last emperor of the Shang dynasty before its fall at the cusp between the Shang and Zhou dynasties and the birth of the I Ching. Okay, over here in this corner, you've got the prevailing Shang dynasty ruled by King Zhou, Dixing. And over here in the other corner, you've got the revolting Zhou led by King Wen, but technically it was King Wen's son. He's the guy credited with designing the I Ching. It's confusing, I know, deal with it. King Zhou of Sheng visits Nüwa's temple on the goddess's birthday. He's so smitten by her beauty, I guess the beauty of the painting or statue on the altar, that he vandalizes the temple wall with a lewd and suggestive poem. Ancient catcalling, I guess. Though having the audacity to catcall a goddess inside her temple is pretty ballsy. This pisses off Nüwa, so she sends a nine-tailed fox spirit to corrupt the king's soul, and to do so to such an extent that he would lose the mandate of heaven. And he does, all because he had unwholesome thoughts of a goddess. Heck, not only does he lose the mandate of heaven, he goes down in history, indelibly remembered by the Chinese people as being the personification of a beta male. You want to talk about a reputation getting tarred and feathered for thousands of years? Dixing. Here, I'll harken back to what we talked about earlier about how some regions of Asia draw an equivalence between Nüwa and the Lady of the Nine Heavens. So personally, I would think twice about engaging in any sort of so-called spiritual or mystical practice that would desecrate the virtue of the goddess. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, perfect, stay that way. If you know exactly what I'm talking about, you've been warned. I translated the I Ching and wrote my commentaries or my take on the Book of Changes because of Tiān Mìng Xuán Niǎo. I published the book for anyone interested in cultivating a personal working relationship with Tiān Mìng Xuán Niǎo, the mysterious lady of the nine heavens. You are looking at pages from my book, I Ching, the Oracle, that cover the mysterious lady of the nine heavens. She is venerated all across East Asia, and in each region takes on a slightly different form with slightly different attributes, and I hope my book will be your companion and guide for working with her and cultivating powers endowed by her. May this third book of mine illuminate the mysteries of the I Ching, help you to cultivate a deeper and also more expansive understanding of both the material world of your being and also the unseen world of your power potential. I'll show you how the hexagrams in the Book of Changes can help you to cultivate great power and wisdom. This book is a grimoire on Taoist magic and cultivation of qi, personal power, woven into my translations and commentaries of the I Ching. You will find the structure to be a book within a book, an upper text, as it were, and a lower text, an exoteric reading of the changes, and an esoteric reading of the same. Recall the video lecture on spirit maps. The structure of my book is intentionally lateral and stratified, the entirety of the book itself a spirit map.